Mom, please! He's dying! The dog won't leave him! 8-year-old Tommy Matthews stood in the doorway, snow covering his small body, tears freezing on his cheeks. His voice cracked with desperation that no child should ever carry. Elena Matthews dropped the kitchen knife. Her hands were shaking, not from cold, from something else, something she'd buried 3 years ago when they'd handed her a folded flag and told her David wasn't coming home. Tommy, what did you find? A soldier, Mom. There's blood everywhere. And the dog is crying. Elena's heart stopped. Not again. Please, God, not again. Before we continue this incredible story, I want to invite you to subscribe to our channel and follow this journey to the very end. Drop a comment below telling me which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's get back to Elena and the impossible choice she's about to face. The blizzard had been screaming for 6 hours straight. Elena Matthews stood at the kitchen sink, washing the same dish for the 3rd time, her mind somewhere else entirely. February 17th, 3 years to the day since they'd knocked on her door. 3 years since 2 Marines in dress uniforms had stood on her porch with faces that told her everything before they'd spoken a single word. Mommy, you're crying again. 6-year-old Sarah tugged at Elena's sleeve, her small face pinched with worry. Elena wiped her eyes quickly. No, baby, just tired. The storm's keeping me up. You always cry on this day. Tommy says it's because of Daddy. Tommy talks too much. He says Daddy was a hero. He says you were 2 before you got sad. Elena's hands stilled in the soapy water. Before she got sad. Is that how her children saw it? Not grief, not survival, just sadness stretching like a shadow across their childhood. Where is your brother? He went outside. Elena's head snapped up. What? He said he saw something in the field. Through the window. Something moving. Sarah, the storm. The front door crashed open. Tommy stood there 8 years old and shaking violently, snow-caked in his hair, his lips turning blue. But it wasn't the cold that made Elena's blood freeze. It was the look in his eyes. Mom, you have to come, right now. There's a man. He's hurt bad, real bad. Tommy, get inside. Close the door. No, Mom, listen to me. Tommy grabbed her arm with surprising strength. He's going to die. He's lying in the snow and there's blood and a dog won't let me get close. But the dog is crying, Mom. Dogs don't cry unless something's really wrong. Elena pulled her son inside, slammed the door against the howling wind. Her mind was racing. A man in the field, wounded, in a blizzard that had already dropped 3 feet of snow with more coming. Tommy, slow down. Tell me exactly what you saw. I was watching from the window. Something was moving out there. I thought maybe it was a deer, so I went to look. Tommy's teeth were chattering. It wasn't a deer. It was a man. He was crawling, Mom, crawling through the snow, and then he stopped. He just stopped, and there's a big dog next to him. The dog barked at me, but not mean, like he was asking for help. Sarah started crying. Is the man dead, Mommy? Elena's hands moved on autopilot, grabbing towels, wrapping them around Tommy. The combat medic training she'd tried so hard to forget was already cataloging information. Wounded, exposure, hypothermia setting in, minutes matter. But she'd made a promise to herself. No more. No more running toward danger. No more playing God with strangers' lives. She had 2 children who needed her alive. Tommy, I need you to... Mom, save him. Tommy's voice broke. Save him and the dog, please. I know you can. Daddy said you used to save people. Daddy said you were the bravest person he ever knew. Elena felt something crack inside her chest. Please, Mom, he's going to die, just like Daddy died. And nobody's going to help him because we're the only ones here. She shouldn't go. The storm was deadly. She didn't know who this man was or why he was bleeding in her field. She had children to protect. But Tommy was looking at her with David's eyes, David's exact eyes. And David had never walked away from someone who needed help. That's why he was dead. Stay here, both of you. Do not open this door for anyone except me. Do you understand? I want to come, Tommy. Elena gripped his shoulders. I need you to be the man of the house, just for a few minutes. Can you do that? He nodded, trying so hard to be brave. Elena grabbed David's old parka from the hook by the door. It still smelled like him. 3 years, and she couldn't bring herself to wash it. She pulled on boots, grabbed the shotgun from the cabinet, and opened the door. The wind hit her like a wall of ice. She couldn't see more than 15 feet in front of her. The snow was chest-high in places. Her children were watching from the window. She could feel their eyes on her back. "Where Tommy?" she shouted over the storm. He pointed toward the old pasture. She started moving. Every step was a battle. The snow grabbed at her legs, tried to pull her down. The cold was savage, finding every gap in her clothing, stealing her body heat, breath by breath. But she kept moving. Because Tommy was right. She used to save people. That's who she was, before grief turned her into a ghost haunting her own life. She found them exactly where Tommy had described. The man lay face down in a depression, his body half buried by drifting snow. Dark clothing, tactical military grade. A spreading stain of red beneath him, shockingly bright against the white. And beside him, pressed against his body, was the dog. Belgian Malinois, 70 pounds of muscle and loyalty. The dog's head came up when Elena approached, and it growled low, warning protective. "Easy, boy, easy." The growling intensified. "I'm not going to hurt him. I'm here to help." The dog's eyes, intelligent, assessing, studied her for a long moment. Then something shifted. The growling stopped. The dog whimpered instead, nudging the man's face with its muzzle. "Help him. Please." Elena knelt in the snow, rolled the man onto his back. Young. Mid-30s, maybe. Strong jaw, dark hair matted with ice. But it was the wound that demanded attention, a gash in his right side, deep and ugly, still seeping blood despite the cold. His eyes opened, barely focused, filled with pain. "Shadow." His voice was a rasp. "Don't leave Shadow. Nobody's leaving anybody." Elena was already assessing. Pulse weak but present. Breathing shallow. Hypothermia advancing. The wound would need stitching, but first she had to get him warm. "What's your name, soldier?" Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition that she had pegged him correctly. "Cole. Marcus Cole." "I'm Elena. I'm going to get you inside. This is going to hurt." The dog. "Shadow's coming too. Can you put any weight on your legs?" "Negative. Left leg's compromised." She looked. Sure enough, his left leg was bent at an angle that suggested serious damage. Knee maybe, or worse. 200 yards back to the cabin, through chest-high snow, carrying a man who outweighed her by at least 50 pounds. She'd done harder things. "I'm going to lift you now. Don't pass out on me." "Ma'am." He grabbed her arm. His grip was weak but urgent. "There are people looking for me. Dangerous people. If they find you, if they find your family. Right now, the only thing that's going to kill you is this cold, so save your breath for surviving." She got her shoulder under his arm, heaved upward. He groaned a sound of agony that he tried to bite back. The dog circled them anxiously, limping itself. "Shadow's hurt too. I noticed. We'll take care of him, one problem at a time." She started moving, step by agonizing step. The man Cole tried to help, but his strength was fading fast. His weight bore down on her, crushing, relentless. Her back screamed. Her legs burned. Her lungs felt like they were filled with ice. But she didn't stop. Halfway across the field, a small figure emerged from the cabin. "Mom, I'm coming to help." "Tommy, no, stay inside." But he was already pushing through the snow, Sarah trailing behind him, both children fighting toward their mother with determination that made her heart swell and break at the same time. Tommy reached them first. He was too small to support the soldier's weight, but he grabbed Shadow's collar and started guiding the limping dog toward the cabin. "Come on, boy. Come on. Follow me." Shadow looked at his handler. Cole managed a faint nod, and the dog went with Tommy, trusting a child because his human told him it was okay. Sarah tried to help Elena, her tiny hands pushing against Cole's back as if she could somehow lighten the load. "Mommy, he's really heavy." "I know, baby. Just a little farther." They made it to the porch. Elena practically fell through the door, dragging Cole with her. He collapsed on the living room floor, consciousness slipping away. "Towels," Elena commanded. "Hot water on the stove. Blankets from the closet. Move." The children scattered. Elena stripped Cole's wet clothes with practiced efficiency. Military training overriding modesty. The wound in his side was worse than she'd thought, knife wound maybe, or shrapnel. Deep enough to be dangerous, but it had missed the major organs. Infection was the real threat now. "Mommy, Shadow's bleeding too." She looked up. Tommy was on the floor with the dog pointing to a gash on Shadow's hindquarters. Okay. Her mind was fragmenting, trying to triage too many problems at once. "Sarah, get my medical kit. The big one from the basement. Tommy, keep pressure on Shadow's wound with a towel." Is the soldier going to die? Elena looked at her son. 8 years old, covered in snow, his father's eyes staring back at her. "Not if I can help it." The words came out before she could stop them. The same words she'd said 1,000 times in Afghanistan. The same words she'd sworn she'd never say again. "Mommy?" Sarah reappeared, dragging the medical kit that was almost as big as she was. "Is this it?" "That's it, baby. Good girl." Elena opened the kit. Sutures, antibiotics, bandages, everything she needed. The combat medic was back. For the next 2 hours, she worked. Stitched Cole's wound with hands that remembered every motion. Started an IV line with fluids from the emergency supplies David had insisted they keep. Monitored his temperature as it slowly climbed back toward normal. She worked on Shadow too, cleaning the dog's wound, bandaging it, earning trust with gentle hands and calm words. The children helped where they could. Tommy held supplies. Sarah fetched water. Neither of them complained, neither of them faltered. When it was done, when Cole was stable and sleeping on a makeshift bed of blankets, when Shadow was curled at his side with a proper bandage and a bowl of water within reach, Elena finally allowed herself to sit. Her hands were shaking. "Mom." Tommy sat beside her. "Are you okay?" "I don't know, baby. I haven't done that in a long time. You were amazing, like a superhero." "I'm not a superhero." "Daddy said you saved lots of people, in the war. He said you were the reason he wasn't scared, because he knew if anything happened, you'd be there to fix it." Elena's eyes burned. "When did Daddy tell you that?" "Before he left. The last time." Tommy's voice got small. "He said I had to take care of you if he didn't come back. Because you take care of everyone else, but sometimes you forget to let people take care of you." The tears came then. She couldn't stop them. "Oh, baby. He shouldn't have put that on you." "I didn't mind. I wanted to help." Tommy leaned against her. "That's why I told you about the soldier. Because Daddy would have wanted you to save him. And because..." He hesitated. "Because you looked so sad today. And I thought maybe if you helped someone, you wouldn't be sad anymore." Elena pulled her son into her arms and held him tight. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, a stranger lay unconscious on her floor, his secrets still hidden, his enemies unknown. And her children had just witnessed their mother step back into a role she'd tried so hard to leave behind. Nothing would ever be the same. But for the first time in 3 years, Elena Matthews didn't feel like a ghost. She felt alive. 3 days into the storm. The power had gone out the second night just as Elena had expected, but David had built this cabin to survive anything. Generators, wood stoves, enough supplies to last a month. He'd always said the mountains were unpredictable. He'd always said preparation was the difference between survival and tragedy. He'd been right about so many things. Elena had been wrong about so many others. Marcus Cole drifted in and out of consciousness for the first 48 hours. Fever came the first night, inevitable, given the contamination risk of his wound. She fought it with antibiotics and cold compresses sitting by his side through the dark hours while her children slept. He talked in his sleep. "Rivera, hold position. Jackson, cover the exit. Chen, get down." Commands to men who weren't there. Orders given in a voice that carried the weight of life and death. Elena recognized the tone. David had spoken the same way in his nightmares. Shadow. Shadow, stay close. The dog never left his side. Shadow ate only when Tommy hand-fed him, drank only when Sarah held the bowl. The bond between handler and dog was absolute unbreakable. On the third morning, Cole's fever broke. His eyes opened clear for the first time since she'd found him. He looked at the ceiling, at the log walls, at the window showing endless white beyond. Where am I? My cabin, Blue Ridge Mountains, Virginia. He turned his head, saw Elena sitting in the chair beside him, saw Shadow pressed against his hip. You saved me. My son found you. I just did the work. How long have I been out? 3 days. He tried to sit up. Pain flashed across his face, and he fell back immediately. Easy. You have 12 stitches in your side, and your left knee is probably fractured. You're not going anywhere for a while. I can't stay here. You don't have a choice. The storm's still going. Roads are buried. Phone lines are dead. Cell service is gone. We're completely isolated. Cole closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted. He was looking at her differently. You're former military. Combat medic. 7 years. Afghanistan mostly. Your husband. 3rd Infantry. He didn't come home. I'm sorry. People always are. A silence stretched between them. The only sounds were the wind outside and the crackle of the wood stove. Can I ask you something? Elena's voice was careful. Why were you bleeding in my field in the middle of a blizzard? Cole didn't answer immediately. His hand moved to Shadow's head, scratching behind the dog's ears. The simple gesture of a man reassuring himself that his last friend was still there. There were people following me. They caught up about 3 miles from here. 4 of them. And I eliminated 2. The other 2. He gestured at his side. They got lucky. What happened to them? Shadow happened to them. But we took damage. We ran. Your cabin was the only light we could see. Elena absorbed this. 4 men. Professional enough to track a seal through a blizzard. 2 eliminated, 2 killed by a dog. Not random criminals. Something else. Who's they? Cole's jaw tightened. That's classified. Classified doesn't mean much when you're bleeding on my floor with my children in the house. Your children are exactly why I can't tell you. The less you know, the safer we are. Elena's voice went cold. I've heard that speech before. From my husband. 2 weeks before he walked into an operation he couldn't tell me about and never walked out. Cole was silent. The men who were chasing you, are they still out there? In this storm, they're probably dead. But when it clears, there will be more. He didn't deny it. Elena stood up abruptly, walked to the window. The snow had stopped falling overnight, but the drifts were monstrous, 10 feet high in places. The road was invisible. The world outside was a white prison. You should have kept moving, found somewhere else to hide. Now you've put targets on us. I was unconscious when Shadow brought me to your door, and you could have left me out there. His voice was quiet. You didn't have to help. Mom always helps people. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her arms wrapped around a blanket. That's what she does, even when it makes her sad. Elena turned. Sarah, go check on your brother. He's feeding Shadow again. The dog really likes him. Sarah walked over to Cole, studying him with 6-year-old directness. Are you a hero soldier like Daddy was? Cole looked at the child. Something cracked in his expression, the armor all soldiers wore beginning to show its seams. I don't know if I'm a hero, I just try to do what's right. Daddy said the same thing, right before he left, right before he didn't come home. Sarah walked away, leaving silence in her wake. Cole's eyes met Elena's. Your husband, what was his name? David. David Matthews. The reaction was immediate. Cole's whole body went still. Matthews, David Matthews, Doc Matthews. Elena's blood went cold. You knew him. I didn't know him personally. But everyone in Special Operations knows the story. Cole's voice had changed. Reverent, almost awed. Kandahar 2019. A combat medic who ran into a Taliban ambush to save a trapped SEAL team, carried 3 men to safety through enemy fire, went back for a 4th, took a bullet covering the extraction. The room seemed to shrink. The SEAL he saved last, the one he died for, was my commanding officer's brother. Elena couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Ma'am, Elena, your husband is a legend in the SEAL community. Every new candidate hears his story during training. He's the reason combat medics get automatic respect in our circles. He's the reason. Cole stopped himself. He's the reason I believe in accepting help from strangers. Because a stranger gave his life for men who weren't even in his unit. Men he'd never met. David Matthews didn't have to go back into that fight. He chose to. And because he chose to, 4 SEALs went home to their families. Elena gripped the windowsill. Her knuckles were white. 3 years. 3 years of wondering if David's death had meant anything. 3 years of telling her children that their father was a hero while secretly fearing it was just a story she'd invented to help them cope. Now a stranger on her floor was telling her it was all true. Mom! Tommy appeared in the doorway. Why are you crying? She was crying. She hadn't noticed. It's okay, baby. Sometimes tears are just feelings that need to come out. Is the soldier making you sad? No. Elena wiped her face, steadied herself. No, Tommy. He's actually making me less sad. She crossed back to Cole's bedside. Her eyes were red, but her voice was strong. Those men chasing you. When the storm clears, they'll come here, and you can barely stand. I know. This cabin is defensible. My husband built it that way. Steel core doors, reinforced shutters, clear sight lines in every direction. Cole's eyebrows rose. Your husband was paranoid. My husband was realistic. Turns out there's no difference. Elena's jaw set. I have weapons, supplies, medical equipment. I also have 2 children I will protect with everything I am. I never doubted that for a second. So you're going to tell me exactly what we're dealing with, right now, classified or not. Because if danger is coming to my door, I have a right to know what shape it's wearing. Cole was silent for a long moment. Shadow lifted his head, looking between them as if sensing the weight of the decision. If I tell you there's no going back, you'll be part of this. Your family will be part of this. We're already part of it. The moment my son found you in that field, our lives became connected to yours. I'm just asking you to respect us enough to tell us what's coming. Another silence. Then Cole began to talk. The story was worse than Elena had imagined. Cole had been part of a covert operation in Yemen, off-book deniable, the kind that only existed in redacted files. His team had uncovered evidence of a massive corruption scheme, a defense contractor selling American military technology to hostile nations, while simultaneously winning billion-dollar Pentagon contracts. The company is called Meridian Defense Systems. They've got people everywhere. Pentagon, CIA, Senate, every agency you can name, they've bought someone inside. If you had evidence, why didn't you go to the authorities? I tried. My contact in military intelligence was killed in a car accident 3 days later. Hit and run, never found the driver. Cole's voice was flat. My teammate Rivera went to the FBI. He had a heart attack in his apartment that night. He was 32. Never had a heart problem in his life. Jesus. Jackson was next. Suicide, they said. Except Jackson was the most stable guy I ever knew. Had a wife, 2 kids, church on Sundays. He was planning a fishing trip the day they found him. Elena felt sick. How many? My entire team, 7 men. I'm the only one left, me and Shadow. Why haven't they gotten to you? Because I saw the pattern and ran before they could set up. I've been moving for 3 weeks, staying off the grid, no phone, no credit cards, nothing that could be tracked. He gestured at the storm outside. The blizzard was supposed to be my cover. It almost was. The evidence you found, do you still have it? Encrypted drive. It's hidden. Safe. How safe? Cole glanced at Shadow. Elena followed his look. Understanding dawned. The dog. Custom compartment in his collar. Fireproof, waterproof, undetectable by standard scanners. Shadow won't let anyone near it except me. And now, he hesitated. Now, maybe your son. Elena thought of Tommy hand-feeding the military dog, earning trust through patience and gentleness. You said there are people in every agency. How do you expose something when everyone who should be stopping it is already bought? I have a contact, a journalist. She's the only person I trust outside the military. If I can get the evidence to her, she can blow this open in a way that can't be covered up. Where is she? Washington. Which means I need to get out of here, get to the coast, and find a way to DC that doesn't leave a trail. You can barely walk. Then I'll crawl if I have to, but I'm not bringing more death to your family. You've already lost enough because of soldiers and their wars. The words hit Elena like a physical blow. Don't, she said quietly. Don't presume to know what I've lost, or how I feel about it. I didn't mean, my husband died doing what he believed was right. I've spent 3 years being angry about that. Angry at him for leaving. Angry at the military for sending him. Angry at myself for not stopping him. She met Cole's eyes. But I was never angry at the men he saved. Never angry at people who needed help and reached out for it. You saved me even though you didn't know what I'd bring with me. I saved you because a man was bleeding in my field, and I knew how to stop it. That's all. That's enough. Cole nodded slowly, something like respect in his eyes. The men who might come, how many? The team that found me was 4. They probably have backup within a day's drive. 15, 20. If they think I'm here, they'll bring enough to make sure the job gets done this time. And they're military. Ex-military. Contractors now, private soldiers for hire, the kind who don't ask questions about the targets they're given. Elena absorbed this. 15 to 20 trained killers. Against a wounded SEAL, his injured dog, a former combat medic, and 2 children. The math was impossible, but she'd done impossible things before. How long until the storm clears enough for them to move? Weather forecast before I lost signal said 48 hours, but that was 3 days ago. Could be sooner. Then we have work to do. She stood, walked to the closet where David had kept his arsenal, opened it. Shotguns, rifles, handguns, ammunition boxes stacked on every shelf. Cole stared. Your husband was definitely paranoid. My husband spent a decade watching good people die because they weren't prepared for bad people. He swore his family would never be caught helpless. Elena pulled out a rifle, checked the chamber. Looks like he was right. Elena, you can't seriously be thinking. I'm not thinking anything. I'm planning. There's a difference. She set the rifle on the table. You said the men chasing you are contractors. That means they're professionals, but they're also predictable. They'll follow protocols, standard approach patterns, standard breach techniques. How do you know about breach techniques? I spent 7 years patching up people after firefights. I learned what worked and what didn't. She pulled out another weapon. This cabin has 3 points of entry and 6 windows. The terrain gives us natural choke points. If we fortify correctly, we can make them pay for every inch. You're not a soldier. No, I'm a mother. Elena's voice went cold. And you're about to see what that means. The wind howled outside. The fire crackled. And in the distance, miles away but growing closer with every hour, death was preparing to visit a widow and her children. It had no idea what was waiting for it. Tommy found her at midnight. Elena was sitting at the kitchen table cleaning the shotgun when her son appeared in the doorway, pajamas rumpled, hair sticking up on one side, David's eyes watching her. Mom, why are you still awake? I could ask you the same thing. I had a bad dream. He shuffled over, climbed into the chair across from her. About Daddy. Elena set down the gun. What kind of dream? The sad kind. Where he's there, but I can't touch him. Where he's talking, but I can't hear what he's saying. Tommy's voice was small. I don't want to forget his voice, Mom. But sometimes I can't remember what it sounds like. Elena's heart cracked open. Come here, baby. He came around the table, climbed into her lap. 8 years old, almost too big for this, but still small enough that she could hold him. You won't forget. It might get fuzzy sometimes, but you won't forget. He's part of you. Do you think he can see us from heaven? I think... Elena hesitated. She'd stopped believing in a lot of things when they'd put David in the ground. I think the people we love never really leave us. They live in our hearts, in the things they taught us, in the way we try to be like them. The soldier Marcus, he said Daddy was famous, said everyone knows about him. Did he? He said Daddy saved a lot of people, that he was really brave. Daddy was the bravest man I ever knew. Mom. Tommy looked up at her. Are we in danger? Elena paused. She could lie. Protect him with ignorance. That's what most parents would do. But David had never lied to her about the risks of his work. He'd respected her enough to let her make informed choices. Their children deserved the same respect. Yes, baby, we might be. Tommy didn't cry, didn't panic. He just nodded slowly, processing. Because of the men who hurt Marcus. Yes. Are they going to come here? They might, when the storm stops. Are you going to fight them? If I have to. Will you win? Elena looked at her son. So young, so brave, so much like his father that sometimes it hurt to look at him. I'm going to try very, very hard. Can I help? Yes. When the time comes, I'm going to need you to be strong. To take care of your sister, to trust me even when things are scary. I can do that. Tommy's jaw set in a way that was pure David. Daddy said I was the man of the house now. He said I had to protect you and Sarah. You do protect us, every day, just by being you. But if bad men come, I want to really help, like you're helping Marcus. Elena hugged him tighter. We'll figure it out together. Okay. Okay. He yawned, suddenly exhausted. Mom, one more thing. What is it? I'm glad you went out in the storm, even though it was dangerous. I'm glad you saved him. Why? Because... Tommy struggled to find the words. Because you looked like Mom again. The real Mom, not the sad one. Elena couldn't speak, could only hold her son and feel the cracks in her heart begin to mend. The real Mom. She'd thought that woman was dead, buried with David in Arlington Cemetery. But Tommy had seen her tonight, seen something Elena had given up looking for. Maybe she wasn't as broken as she'd believed. Or maybe she was finally finding a reason to put the pieces back together. Dawn broke cold and clear. For the first time in 5 days, the storm was truly over. The sun rose over the Blue Ridge Mountains, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. The world outside was silent, beautiful, deadly. Elena stood on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the light spread across the valley. Somewhere out there, maybe close, maybe far, people were preparing to kill her family. She'd spent her whole night preparing too. It's beautiful. Cole had managed to make it to the doorway, leaning heavily on a makeshift crutch. Hard to believe anything bad could happen in a place like this. That's what makes it dangerous. The beauty makes you forget. You've changed since we first talked. Have I? When I woke up, you were scared, angry, ready to push me back out into the snow if I brought trouble to your door. He moved to stand beside her. Now you're cleaning weapons and quoting breach protocols. Something shifted. Elena took a sip of coffee. My son said something last night. He said I looked like the real Mom again, the one who existed before his father died. And what did that feel like? Hearing that? Terrifying and right. She turned to look at him. For 3 years, I've been trying to be someone else. Someone safe. Someone who stays home and never takes risks and never loses anyone ever again. I thought if I became that person, the grief would stop. Did it? No. It just froze, solid, like I was made of ice inside. She looked back at the mountains. But last night something thawed. When I was working on you, when I was planning how to protect my children, I felt Alive. Like I'd been sleepwalking and suddenly woke up. Is that why you're doing this, to feel alive? I'm doing this because it's right. Those men you were trying to expose, they're killing good people to protect their profits. They killed your team. They'll kill you. And if they find out we helped you, they'll kill us too. Her voice hardened. But maybe if we fight back, we can stop them. And maybe stopping them means all those deaths, your friends, my husband, everyone they've sacrificed on the altar of their greed, maybe it means something. Maybe it wasn't all for nothing. Cole was quiet for a long moment. David Matthews was a hero, he said finally. But I think maybe he wasn't the only one in his family. I'm not a hero. I'm a mother with a shotgun and a reason to use it. That's the same thing, just different uniforms. Before Elena could respond, Tommy burst onto the porch. Mom, Marcus Shadow's acting weird. He keeps running to the window and growling. They moved inside. Shadow was at the front window, body rigid, a low rumble building in his chest. The dog's ears were pricked forward, focused on something in the distance. Cole limped over, peered through the glass. His face went pale. Elena, get the children. What is it? Movement. In the tree line. 12 o'clock, about 300 yards. Elena looked. At first she saw nothing, then a flash of white. Not snow, fabric, winter camouflage. They found us. Faster than I expected. They must have had a team closer than I thought. How many? I count 4, but that's just the advance element. More will be coming. Elena's mind switched into tactical mode. 4 now. More soon. Children in the house. 1 defender barely mobile. 1 dog injured but operational. Impossible odds. But she'd been running from impossible for too long. Tommy, she said calmly, go get your sister. Bring her to the basement. Now. Mom, what's... Now, Tommy, don't argue. Just go. He went. Smart boy. Brave boy. Elena turned to Cole. Can you shoot? With what they gave me, I can shoot from here until I run out of ammunition. Good. You take the main window. I'll handle the approaches. Elena. We don't have time for arguments. Those men are here for you, which means they're here for us now too. Either we fight together or we die separately. Those are the only options. Cole looked at her. The widow. The combat medic. The mother with fire in her eyes. And he saw what David Matthews must have seen every day of their marriage, a woman who would walk through hell for the people she loved. Okay, he said. Let's give them a fight they'll never forget. Elena grabbed her shotgun, checked the magazine, racked around into the chamber. Outside, the men in white were starting to move. The siege of the Matthews cabin was about to begin. The first bullet hit the cabin at exactly 7:42 a.m. It punched through the kitchen window and buried itself in the wall 3 inches from Elena's head. She dropped instantly, years of training overriding thought, her body remembering what her mind had tried to forget. Contact front, Cole shouted from his position. 2 moving left, 2 holding at the tree line. Elena crawled to the reinforced shutter controls. David had installed them after his second deployment, steel core panels that could drop over every window at the flip of a switch. She'd thought he was paranoid. She'd been wrong about so many things. The shutters slammed down with a metallic crash. The cabin went dark except for the thin slits David had cut for exactly this purpose. Firing ports. Her husband had turned their home into a fortress, and she'd never appreciated it until now. Mom, Tommy's voice came from the basement stairs. What's happening? Stay down there, Tommy. Keep your sister safe. But I can hear. Do what I say. Another volley hit the cabin. The impacts were deliberate, probing, testing the structure's weaknesses. These weren't amateurs spraying bullets. These were professionals mapping their target. Cole had positioned himself at the main window, rifle steady despite his wounds. His face was pale sweat beading on his forehead, but his hands didn't shake. They're not charging, he said. They're waiting. For what? Backup. The advance team's job is to pin us down until the main force arrives. How long? An hour, maybe less. Elena's mind raced. 4 now. More coming. They couldn't win a siege, they'd run out of ammunition long before the attackers ran out of men. They needed a different strategy. "Can you hold this position alone?" Cole glanced at her. "Where are you going?" "The back approach. If they're focused on the front, they might try to breach from behind." "Elena, you can't." "I didn't ask for permission." She grabbed the shotgun and moved toward the rear of the cabin, staying low, using the furniture as cover. Behind her, she heard Cole curse under his breath. "Stubborn woman. You have no idea." The back door was reinforced like the front, but Elena knew it was the cabin's weak point. The approach from that direction offered more cover for attackers. A rocky outcropping that David had always meant to clear but never got around to. She positioned herself beside the door, listening, waiting. Footsteps. Soft, but audible. Someone moving through snow, trying to be quiet, and mostly succeeding. Elena's heart pounded. This wasn't like the operating room where the danger was blood loss and infection. This was kill or be killed. This was the thing she'd run from for 3 years. A shadow fell across the door's frosted window. She waited. The handle moved. Slowly. Testing. Then the door exploded inward. Elena fired before she thought. The shotgun roared in the enclosed space, and the first man through the door went down hard, his body crumpling on the threshold. The second man was right behind him, already raising his weapon. She racked the slide, fired again. He fell. But there was a third she hadn't seen. Him hadn't counted right, and he was inside the cabin now, his rifle swinging toward her. Time slowed. She saw the muzzle. Saw her death approaching in the fraction of a second it would take for him to pull the trigger. Then Shadow hit him from the side. 70 pounds of Belgian Malinois slammed into the attacker's legs, jaws clamping onto his weapon arm with enough force to shatter bone. The man screamed a high, terrible sound and went down with the dog on top of him. "Shadow, release." The dog obeyed instantly, backing off, blood on his muzzle. The man lay writhing on the floor, his arm a ruined mess. Elena moved fast, kicked his weapon away, zip-tied his good wrist to the door handle. Checked the bodies of the other two, both dead. "Clear back here," she shouted. "Copy." Cole's voice was strained. "But we've got a problem." She ran back to the front room. Cole was still at the window, but his position had shifted. He was pointing at something through the firing slit. "Look, at the ridge." Elena looked. Her stomach dropped. 3 more vehicles were coming down the mountain road. SUVs black, moving fast despite the snow. Each one could hold 4 to 6 men. How many is that total? If those are full 20, maybe more. 20 professional killers. Against 2 wounded adults, 2 children and a dog. "We can't hold this position," Elena said. "I know. We need to move. Move where they've got the road." Elena's mind flashed to something David had shown her years ago. A trail, barely visible, overgrown, leading down the backside of the mountain to an old ranger station. He'd found it during a hunting trip, marked it on a map that still hung in the basement. There's another way out. What? A trail, behind the cabin. It goes down to an emergency ranger station about 5 miles from here. If we can get there, there might be radio equipment, a way to call for help. 5 miles through mountain terrain in winter with 2 kids and a man who can barely walk. "You got a better idea?" Cole didn't answer. Below them, the SUVs had stopped at the edge of the property. Doors were opening, men were getting out. "We've got maybe 3 minutes before they surround us completely. Then we leave now." Elena ran for the basement stairs. "Tommy, Sarah, come up here right now." The children appeared, Sarah clinging to Tommy's hand, both of them pale with fear. "Mom, what's..." "Listen to me very carefully. We're leaving. We're going out the back and into the woods. You're going to run as fast as you can, and you're not going to stop, no matter what you hear behind us. Do you understand?" Tommy nodded. Sarah started crying. "Baby, I need you to be brave. Can you be brave for Mommy? I'm scared." "I know. I'm scared too. But we're going to be okay, I promise." She grabbed the emergency pack she'd prepared the night before. Food, water, first aid, ammunition. She strapped it on, then handed Tommy a smaller pack. "Carry this. Don't drop it." "What about Shadow?" "Shadow's coming. Cole." He'd made it to the back of the cabin moving faster than should have been possible with his injuries. Adrenaline, fear, the same things that were keeping Elena upright. I'll cover the retreat. You get the kids moving. You can barely walk. I can walk enough. Go. Elena wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The sound of voices was getting closer, commands being shouted in tactical shorthand. Tommy, Sarah, follow me. Stay low. Stay quiet. She opened the back door, stepped over the bodies of the men she'd killed, and moved into the tree line behind the cabin. The snow was deep here, waist-high in places. The children struggled, their small legs sinking with every step. Elena pulled Sarah onto her back, grabbed Tommy's hand, and kept moving. Behind them, gunfire erupted. Cole, keep moving. His voice came from the cabin, punctuated by the crack of his rifle. I'll catch up. But he couldn't catch up. She knew it, even as she kept running. He was buying them time with the only currency he had left, his life. Mom, we can't leave him. We're not leaving him, baby. He's going to meet us. But the bad men, just run, please, just run. They ran. The forest swallowed them. The gunfire behind them continued for another 30 seconds, then went silent. Elena didn't stop, didn't look back, just pushed forward through the snow, through the trees, through the fear that was trying to paralyze her. 5 miles. She had to cover 5 miles with 2 exhausted children and killers on her trail. Impossible. But she was done with impossible. Impossible was just another word for not yet. They moved for what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes. The trail David had shown her was faint, but Elena found it a narrow path winding down the mountain between ancient oaks. The snow was thinner here, the canopy above blocking some of the accumulation. Mom, I have to stop, Tommy gasped. My legs hurt. Just a little farther, baby. I can't. You can. You're stronger than you know, just like your father. They pushed on. Then Elena heard it. Footsteps, coming from behind. She pulled the children behind a fallen log, pressed a hand over Sarah's mouth to muffle her crying. The footsteps grew closer, closer. A figure emerged from the trees. Elena raised her shotgun. Wait, Elena, it's me. Cole stumbled into view, his face gray, his shirt soaked with fresh blood, but he was alive. Oh, God. Elena rushed to him, caught him as he nearly fell. How did you... Killed 2 more. The rest are searching the cabin. He coughed and blood flecked his lips. Bought us maybe 10 minutes. You're bleeding again. Notice that. He managed a weak smile. Your husband's cabin held up pretty good. They can't breach the front. Gave me time to slip out. Can you walk? Define walk. Move forward without falling. Then yes, barely. Elena wrapped his arm around her shoulders. Tommy took his other side without being asked, supporting as much of the weight as his small body could manage. Where are we going? Cole asked. Ranger station, 4 miles, maybe less. 4 miles. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sure, why not? They moved. Behind them, someone started shouting. They'd found the trail. They're tracking us, Cole said. I know. We can't outrun them. I know. So what's the plan? Elena looked around. The terrain here was rocky, broken by ravines and outcroppings. David had brought her here, once pointed out the natural choke points. You see that ridge up ahead? The one with the overhang? Yeah. That's where we make a stand. The approach is narrow. They can only come at us 2 at a time. That doesn't change the math. There's still more of them than us. No, but it changes the equation. It turns overwhelming force into manageable waves. Cole stared at her. You really were a combat medic. I really was. You know what you're suggesting is suicide. I know what it's not. It's not letting them catch us in the open. It's not letting them take my children without a fight. They reached the ridge. Elena positioned the children behind the rocky overhang in a natural shelter that would protect them from gunfire. Tommy, listen to me. You and Sarah are going to stay here. You're not going to move. Not going to make a sound no matter what happens. Do you understand? Mom, I want to help. This is helping. Keeping your sister safe is helping. That's your job right now. That's the most important job there is. What if you don't... Elena cupped her son's face in her hands. Then you take the trail down the mountain. It leads to a ranger station. There's a radio there. You call for help. Can you do that? Tears were streaming down Tommy's face. Mom, can you do that? He nodded. I love you, both of you, more than anything in this world. She kissed each of them, then turned away before she could change her mind. Cole was already in position, rifle ready, watching the approach. They're coming. I can see movement. Elena crouched beside him, shotgun braced against the rock. How many rounds do you have left? 12. You. 8. 20 rounds, against at least a dozen armed men. This is a terrible plan, Cole said. Got a better one? No. Then shut up and shoot straight. The first attacker came around the bend 20 seconds later. Cole dropped him with a single shot. The second was right behind Elena, fired, and he went down. They kept coming. 2 more fell, then 3. The narrow approach was working exactly as Elena had hoped, turning superior numbers into a deadly bottleneck. But they were adapting. Smoke! Cole shouted. A canister landed between them, spewing thick gray fog that burned Elena's eyes and lungs. She fired blind, heard a scream, didn't know if she'd hit anyone. Fall back! Get behind cover! They retreated to the secondary position, but now the attackers were moving faster, using the smoke to advance. Elena's shotgun clicked empty. She grabbed her pistol 9 rounds and kept firing. A bullet grazed her arm. She felt the burn, ignored it. Another attacker fell, then another. But there were too many. They were getting closer. Elena! Cole's voice was desperate. I'm out. She threw him her pistol. 4 rounds left, make them count. He did. 4 shots, 3 kills. Then silence. Elena looked around the smoke. Bodies everywhere. The approach littered with the dead, but more were coming. She could hear them regrouping, preparing for another assault. That's it, Cole said. We're done. No. Elena. I said no, there has to be something. Then she heard it. Rotors. Faint at first, but growing louder. The distinctive thump of helicopter blades cutting through mountain air. Is that... Cole started. Shh. The sound grew. Not one helicopter. Multiple. The attackers heard it too. The regrouping stopped. Confused shouts echoed through the trees. Then the helicopters crested the ridge. 3 Black Hawks. Military designation. American military. Elena couldn't believe what she was seeing. The lead helicopter opened fire. The tree line where the attackers had been massing erupted in chaos. Men scattered, tried to run, didn't get far. The helicopters circled like predators, methodical, relentless. Within 60 seconds, the shooting stopped. Elena stood frozen. The helicopters were landing. Soldiers in American uniforms were disembarking, moving to secure the area with professional efficiency. Cole, she whispered. What's happening? He was staring at the soldiers with an expression she couldn't read. I don't know, but those aren't contractors. A woman in civilian clothes approached. Middle-aged, sharp-eyed, moving with the authority of someone used to command. Mrs. Matthews, I'm Patricia Marsh. Senator Patricia Marsh. Elena couldn't speak, could barely think. Your son, the woman continued. Tommy. He reached us. What? The emergency radio in your basement. He's been broadcasting for hours. SOS on every frequency. Gave your coordinates, described. The situation, refused to stop transmitting no matter what he heard above him. Elena's legs gave out. She would have fallen if the senator hadn't caught her. Easy, you're safe now. It's over. My children. Unharmed. My people are with them. The boy's already asking when he can see you. Elena looked back at the overhang where she'd left Tommy and Sarah. Soldiers were there now, but Tommy was pushing past them, running toward her. Mom, Mom, they came. I called and they came. He slammed into her and she caught him, held him so tight she thought she might never let go. You did this, she whispered. You saved us. I remembered what you said about the ranger station, but I thought maybe the radio in the basement would work instead. So I kept trying, and the man on the other end said help was coming. And you wonderful boy, you brave, wonderful boy. Sarah appeared next, carried by a soldier, reaching for her mother with both arms. Elena gathered them both, her broken family alive against all odds. "Mrs. Matthews." The senator's voice was gentle but insistent. "There are things we need to discuss, about Sergeant Cole, about the men who attacked you, about what happens next. Later. I understand you need time, but I said later." Elena's voice carried an edge that made even the senator pause. "Right now, I'm holding my children. Everything else can wait." The senator nodded slowly, something like respect in her eyes. "You held off over a dozen trained operatives with minimal equipment. You protected a national intelligence asset. You saved Sergeant Cole's life and the evidence he carries." She glanced at the bodies scattered across the mountain. "When you're ready, Mrs. Matthews, there are people who want to thank you. There are people who want to give you a medal." Elena looked at her children. At Tommy, who'd been brave enough to call for help when everything seemed lost. At Sarah, who'd trusted her mother even when she didn't understand. "I don't want a medal." "What do you want?" Elena thought about David, about the flag they'd given her, about 3 years of grief and the single week that had changed everything. "I want to go home. Your cabin sustained significant damage in the assault. It will need repairs. Then I want to take my children somewhere safe and sleep for about 100 years. The senator almost smiled. "That can be arranged." Cole limped over, supported by 2 soldiers. He looked terrible pale, bleeding, barely conscious, but he was alive. "Elena," his voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank Tommy. He's the hero." Cole looked at the boy, still wrapped in his mother's arms. "Your dad would be proud of you, kid. Prouder than words can say." Tommy didn't answer, just buried his face in his mother's shoulder. The soldiers began their work. Bodies collected, evidence gathered, the machinery of military justice beginning to grind. Elena sat on a fallen log with her children, watching it all happen around her. She should have felt relief, joy, victory. Instead, she felt hollow. "Mom." Tommy's voice was small. "Are you okay?" "I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know." "We won, though, right? The bad guys lost." "Yes, the bad guys lost." "Then why do you look sad?" Elena thought about the question, thought about the men she'd killed. They'd been trying to murder her family, and she didn't regret stopping them. But killing changed you. She'd seen it in David's eyes after every deployment. Now, she understood it in a way she never had before. "Sometimes winning still hurts," she said finally. "Sometimes doing the right thing leaves marks that don't heal. Like Daddy's scars. Yes, baby, just like Daddy's scars." Sarah had fallen asleep against Elena's chest, exhausted beyond consciousness. Tommy was fighting to stay awake, his eyelids drooping. "Mom, one more thing." "What is it?" "I'm glad you're my mom. Not just today. Always. But especially today." Elena's throat closed up. "I'm glad you're my son. More than you'll ever know." Tommy nodded, and then he was asleep too, slumped against her side. Elena sat there, holding both her children, watching the sun rise over the blood-stained snow. They'd survived, but the story wasn't over. Somewhere in Washington, powerful people were learning that their secrets had been exposed, that the witnesses they'd tried to eliminate were still alive, that a widow from the Blue Ridge Mountains had done what their army of contractors couldn't stop. The fight was coming to them now, and Elena Matthews was done running. The helicopter lifted off at noon, carrying Elena and her children toward a future none of them could have imagined 12 hours earlier. Tommy pressed his face against the window, watching the cabin shrink below them. The roof was riddled with bullet holes. The back door hung off its hinges. Bodies still lay in the snow, covered now with military tarps. "Will we ever go back?" he asked. Elena didn't have an answer. The cabin had been David's dream, their sanctuary. Now it was a crime scene. "I don't know, baby. Maybe someday." Sarah hadn't spoken since they'd boarded the helicopter. She sat in Elena's lap, thumb in her mouth, a habit she'd broken 2 years ago. The regression told Elena everything about what her youngest had experienced. "Ma'am." The soldier beside her leaned closer. "Senator Marsh wants to speak with you when we land. She says it's urgent." "Everything's urgent. Tell her my children need food and rest first." She anticipated that. "There's a safe house waiting. Full security. Kitchen stocked. She'll meet you there in 3 hours." A safe house. Security details. Senators wanting meetings. Elena's life had become something unrecognizable. "Where's Sergeant Cole?" "Medical facility. His injuries were severe. He's in surgery now." "Will he make it?" "The doctors are optimistic. He's a SEAL. They're hard to kill." Elena thought about the blood she'd seen on Cole's shirt, the way he'd kept fighting despite wounds that would have dropped most men. "Shadow," she said suddenly. "The dog. Where is he?" "With Sergeant Cole. Wouldn't leave his side. The medical staff tried to separate them, but..." The soldier almost smiled. "That dog has opinions. Good. At least something in this chaos was still working the way it should." The helicopter banked toward Washington. Elena held her children and tried not to think about what was waiting for them. 3 hours later, she was sitting across from Patricia Marsh in a living room that felt more like a bunker than a home. Reinforced windows, security cameras in every corner, 2 armed guards at the door. The children were upstairs finally sleeping after bowls of soup and promises that the nightmare was over. Elena wasn't sure she believed those promises herself. "You look exhausted," Marsh said. "I killed 6 people yesterday. Exhausted doesn't begin to cover it. 7, actually. One of the wounded didn't make it." Elena's stomach turned. She hadn't known, hadn't wanted to know. "Does that bother you?" Marsh asked. "It should, shouldn't it? But all I feel is..." Elena searched for the word. "Nothing, just nothing. That's shock. It'll pass. Then the feelings will come and they'll be complicated. You sound like you know from experience." Marsh's expression flickered. "I was military before I was a senator. Different era, different wars. But killing stays with you the same way." "Why am I here, Senator? What do you want from me?" Marsh leaned forward. "The drive, the evidence Cole was carrying. We need it. It's in Shadow's collar, Cole told me." "We know, but Shadow won't let anyone near him except Cole, and Cole is currently unconscious on an operating table." Marsh paused. "There is one other person the dog seems to trust. Tommy. Your son bonded with that animal in ways we don't fully understand. If he can retrieve the drive..." "Absolutely not." Elena's voice went cold. "My son has been through enough. He's 8 years old. He shouldn't be part of this. He's already part of it, Elena. He saved your lives with that radio call. He earned Shadow's trust. He's a child, my child. And I'm not putting him in the middle of your intelligence operation." Marsh sat back. Her eyes were calculating, assessing. "Let me tell you what's on that drive. Names of Pentagon officials who've been selling classified technology to hostile nations for over a decade. Financial records showing billions of dollars funneled through shell companies. Evidence of at least 14 murders, including the hit on Cole's entire team. I don't care. You should. Because one of those shell companies has connections to the contractor who supplied equipment to your husband's unit in Afghanistan." Elena's blood went cold. "What?" "David Matthews, 3rd Infantry Division, combat medic. Killed in action, Kandahar Province, March 2019. Marsh's voice was gentle now. The intelligence he was carrying when he died, the reason he went back into that firefight, was evidence of contractor corruption. He'd discovered the same thing Cole discovered. Different angle, same conspiracy. Elena couldn't breathe. "You're telling me..." "I'm telling you that your husband didn't die in a random Taliban ambush. He was targeted, specifically, because he found out things he wasn't supposed to know." The room spun. Elena gripped the arms of her chair, trying to anchor herself to reality. "That's impossible. The Army investigated. They said, the Army investigation was compromised. 2 of the officers who signed off on the final report are on the list of names on that drive." No. Elena shook her head. No, you're lying. You're saying this to manipulate me into helping you. I wish I were. Marsh pulled a folder from her briefcase. This is a preliminary analysis of what we've been able to reconstruct from Cole's mission. Look at page 12. And Elena's hands were shaking as she opened the folder. Her eyes found the name immediately. David Matthews, 3rd Infantry. Priority target. Neutralize before extraction. The words blurred. Elena blinked and tears fell onto the page. They killed him. Her voice was barely a whisper. They murdered my husband. Yes, and they've been killing anyone who gets close to the truth ever since. Cole's team, journalists, whistleblowers, 14 confirmed dead, probably more. And this evidence, it proves all of it. It proves enough to bring the entire conspiracy down, but only if we can access it. And right now, that means your son. Elena sat in silence for a long moment. The grief she'd carried for 3 years was transforming into something else. Something harder, sharper, rage. If I agree to this, she said slowly, if Tommy retrieves that drive, what happens next? Congressional hearing, public testimony, the whole thing blown wide open where they can't bury it. And the people who killed David, prison for the rest of their lives, if they're lucky. And if they're not lucky, Marsh's expression didn't change. Justice takes many forms, Elena, some more permanent than others. Elena thought about David, about the morning he'd left for his last deployment, the way he'd held her at the door, the way he'd promised he'd come home. He'd known something was wrong. She realized that now. He'd been quieter than usual in those final weeks, more intense, like a man preparing for something he wasn't sure he'd survive. He'd known, and he'd gone anyway, because that's who David was. I need to talk to my son. Of course. Elena found Tommy in the upstairs bedroom, not sleeping as she'd thought, but sitting by the window looking at the security guards in the yard. Hey baby, I thought you were resting. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the guns. Elena sat beside him. That'll get better. It takes time, but it gets better. Mom, are we safe now? We're safe. Then why are there so many guards? She couldn't lie to him. Not after everything he'd done. There are some very bad people who don't want the truth to come out. The soldiers are here to make sure those people can't hurt us. What truth? Elena took a deep breath. Tommy, do you remember how I told you Daddy died? How he was protecting other soldiers? He was a hero. Yes, he was. But there's more to the story. Things I didn't know until today. She took his hand. The bad people who sent men after Marcus. They're the same people who killed your father. Tommy's eyes went wide. What? Daddy found out something he wasn't supposed to know. Something that could hurt them. So they... She couldn't say the words. They killed him. Tommy's voice was flat, too old for an 8-year-old. They murdered Daddy. Yes. And Marcus has proof. In Shadow's collar. That's why they wanted to stop him so badly. Tommy was quiet for a long moment. Elena could see him processing, the wheels turning behind those eyes so like his father's. I can get it, he said finally. What? The proof. Shadow trusts me. He let me feed him. He let me pet him when he wouldn't let anyone else close. Tommy stood up straighter. I can get the drive from his collar. Tommy, I don't want you. Mom. He turned to face her, and in that moment he wasn't an 8-year-old boy. He was David's son. They killed Daddy. They tried to kill us. If there's something I can do to stop them, I have to do it. That's what Daddy would do. That's what you did on the mountain. Elena's heart broke and swelled at the same time. You're sure? I'm sure. She pulled him into a hug. I'm so proud of you. You know that. So incredibly proud. I know, Mom. I love you too. They found Shadow in the medical facility, curled at the foot of Cole's hospital bed. Cole was unconscious, hooked to monitors and IVs, but his vitals were stable. The surgery had gone well. Shadow's head came up when they entered. His body tensed, protective, watchful. "Hey, boy." Tommy stepped forward slowly. "Remember me." The dog's tail moved. Just once. But it was enough. "I need to look at your collar. Is that okay?" Shadow studied him for a long moment. Then he stood, walked toward the boy, and sat down in front of him. Tommy reached out with steady hands, found the catch on the collar, opened the hidden compartment. The drive was small, barely bigger than a fingernail, but it contained everything. "Got it," Tommy said. Elena took the drive from her son's hand. Such a small thing to have cost so many lives. "Good boy," Tommy said to Shadow. "Good boy." The dog licked his face, and for the first time since the mountain, Tommy smiled. The next 48 hours were a blur of meetings, briefings, and preparations. The drive contained exactly what Marsh had promised and more. Names, dates, financial records, orders for assassinations, internal communications that damned everyone involved. The conspiracy went higher than anyone had imagined. Pentagon officials, defense contractors, 2 sitting members of Congress, even a deputy director at the CIA. "This is the biggest corruption scandal in military history," one of the analysts told Elena. "When this goes public, it's going to shake the entire government." "Good," Elena said. "Shake it." Cole regained consciousness on the second day. Elena was there when he opened his eyes. "Elena." His voice was hoarse. "The kids. Safe, thanks to you. Shadow. Right here." Tommy was sitting in the corner with the dog. "He hasn't left your side." Cole managed a weak smile. "Good boy." "The drive is secure," Elena said. "Senator Marsh has it. The analysis is almost complete. And the men who attacked us, dead, captured, neutralized." She paused. "It's over, Marcus. You did it. We did it." He reached for her hand. "I couldn't have made it without you. Any of you. Just returning a favor. Someone told me once that a stranger saved men who weren't in his unit, went back into a fight he didn't have to fight." She squeezed his hand. "That's the kind of thing that gets passed on." Cole's eyes filled with emotion. David was an incredible man. Yes, he was. And now the people who took him from us are going to pay. The congressional hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Elena spent those weeks preparing, reviewing testimony, answering questions from lawyers, trying to explain events that still felt like a fever dream. The children stayed with her at the safe house. Tommy had become something of a celebrity among the security staff, the 8-year-old who'd called in the cavalry. Sarah was slowly returning to herself, though she still had nightmares. Shadow stayed too. Cole had insisted. "That dog saved your life on the mountain," he'd said from his hospital bed. "And Tommy saved Shadow's. They belong together. Dogs aren't supposed to be therapy animals for traumatized children. Shadow isn't a regular dog, and Tommy isn't a regular kid." Cole smiled. "Besides, Shadow's earned a retirement. What better retirement than a family who loves him? So Shadow became theirs. The children adored him. And Elena found comfort in the presence of a creature who understood violence and loyalty in equal measure. The day before the hearing, Senator Marsh came to see her. "Are you ready?" "No, but I'm going anyway." "You don't have to testify. We have enough evidence without you." "I know, but those people killed my husband. They tried to kill my children. I'm going to sit in that room and look them in the eye while their world falls apart." Marsh nodded slowly. "You've changed, Elena, since the mountain." "I had to. That's what survivors do. We adapt or we die." Marsh handed her a folder. "There's one more thing, something we didn't tell you before because we wanted to be sure." Elena opened the folder, read the first page, felt the air leave her lungs. "Is this real?" "Confirmed yesterday. The Medal of Honor Committee reviewed your husband's case. The original investigation was corrupted, but we submitted the true evidence. They made their decision unanimously." Elena stared at the words on the page. Medal of Honor, Posthumous. David Michael Matthews. The highest honor the nation could bestow, for the man who'd given everything. There's a ceremony scheduled, Marsh continued. After the hearings. The president will present it personally. Elena couldn't speak. Tears were falling, but she didn't bother wiping them away. He was always a hero, she finally managed. This just makes it official. There's more. Marsh's voice was gentle. The SEAL community has been following this case. They wanted you to know that David's sacrifice has never been forgotten. His name is spoken during training. His story is used to teach what real courage looks like. I didn't know that. They didn't want to intrude on your grief. But now, Marsh paused. Now they want you to know that your husband's legacy continues. Every medic who follows in his footsteps, every soldier who puts others before themselves, they're carrying a piece of David with them. Elena closed the folder, held it against her chest like a lifeline. 3 years of grief. 3 years of wondering if any of it had meant anything. Now she had her answer. The hearing room was packed, cameras everywhere, reporters crowding the gallery, the biggest political story in decades. Elena sat at the witness table flanked by Marsh and a team of lawyers. Cole was there too, still recovering but determined to see this through. The accused sat across the room. Defense contractors, military officials, politicians. Some looked defiant, others looked terrified. All of them looked guilty. Elena's testimony lasted 4 hours. She told them everything the storm Cole's arrival besieged the evidence. She described the attack on the mountain in clinical detail, watching the accused flinch with every word. When they asked about her husband, she didn't flinch. David Matthews discovered the same corruption that Sergeant Cole discovered. He gathered evidence. He was preparing to blow the whistle. Her voice was steady. So they killed him, made it look like an enemy attack, buried the truth with his body. Mrs. Matthews. The committee chairman leaned forward. Do you have proof of this allegation? I have the orders. Signed, dated, priority target, neutralized before extraction. She looked at the accused. I have their names, and now so does everyone else. The room erupted. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and Elena Matthews sat perfectly still, watching the men who had destroyed her life begin to understand that their destruction was coming too. By the end of the week, 17 people had been indicted. Contracts worth billions were canceled. Investigations were launched in 4 countries. The conspiracy that had operated in shadows for over a decade was finally exposed to the light. But for Elena, the most important moment came in a private ceremony at the White House. The president himself pinned the Medal of Honor on a velvet case. Tommy and Sarah stood beside their mother, watching their father receive the recognition he had always deserved. This medal represents the highest form of courage, the president said. David Matthews gave his life not just in service to his country, but in pursuit of truth. He saw corruption and refused to look away. He paid the ultimate price, but his sacrifice has now led to the exposure and dismantling of one of the largest criminal conspiracies in military history. Elena accepted the medal with hands that shook. Mrs. Matthews, the president continued, you have also shown extraordinary courage. You protected a witness, fought against overwhelming odds, and helped bring your husband's killers to justice. The nation is grateful. She should have felt triumph, victory, vindication. Instead, she felt tired, bone-deep tired. The fight was over, and she didn't know who she was supposed to be now. That night, back at the safe house, she found Tommy sitting with Shadow on the back porch. The dog's head rested on the boy's lap. Neither moved when she approached. Mom, is it really over? Yes, baby. It's really over. What happens now? Elena sat beside him, looked up at the stars, thought about David, who used to do the same thing after every deployment, sit outside and remind himself what peace felt like. I don't know, she admitted. I haven't thought that far ahead. Can we go home? To the cabin? Eventually. It needs repairs first. I'd like that. Tommy stroked Shadow's ears. I think Daddy would like us to keep it. He built it for us. Yes, he did. Mom. Tommy's voice was small again, uncertain. Are you going to be sad forever, like before? Elena considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. The grief wasn't gone, might never be gone. But something had shifted. The frozen block inside her had cracked, and what was flowing through those cracks felt less like sorrow and more like life. No, she said finally. I'm not going to be sad forever. Sad sometimes, yes. Missing Daddy always, but not the way I was before. What changed? She put her arm around her son. You did. You and your sister. Watching you be brave made me remember how to be brave too. I was really scared the whole time. I know, that's what brave means. Being scared and doing it anyway. That's what you said Daddy used to say. Because he was right. About a lot of things. Shadow lifted his head, looking between them with those intelligent eyes. Then he licked Tommy's face and settled back down with a contented sigh. Mom, can Shadow really stay with us? Yes, baby. Shadow's family now. Good. Tommy leaned against her. I think Daddy would have liked Shadow. I think so too. They sat there until the stars faded and dawn began to break. And for the first time in 3 years, Elena Matthews felt something she'd forgotten was possible. Hope. 6 weeks had passed since the congressional hearing, and the cabin was almost unrecognizable. Elena stood in the doorway watching the construction crew finish the last repairs. New windows, new doors, fresh paint covering the bullet holes. The physical damage was nearly erased, but she could still see the ghosts of that terrible day in every corner. It looks good, Mom. Tommy appeared beside her, Shadow at his heels as always. Almost like before, almost. Are you happy to be home? Elena considered the question. The safe house had been comfortable, but it had never felt like theirs. This cabin, with all its scars and memories, was where David's spirit still lived. Yes, she said finally. I think I am. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus Cole. Landing at the regional airport in 2 hours. Need to talk. Important. Elena frowned. Cole had been in Washington for the past month, finishing his medical recovery and helping with the ongoing investigations. They'd spoken twice on the phone, brief conversations about logistics and gratitude. But this felt different. Who's that? Tommy asked. Marcus. He's coming to visit. Tommy's face lit up. Really? Can Shadow see him? I'm sure Shadow would love that. 2 hours later, Cole's rental car pulled into the driveway. He looked better than the last time she'd seen him, still thin, still carrying himself with careful attention to his healing wounds, but stronger. More like the soldier he'd been before everything fell apart. Shadow was at the car door before Cole could open it, tail wagging furiously, whimpering with joy. Hey, boy. Hey. Cole knelt down, letting the dog cover his face with kisses. I missed you too. Tommy ran out next, throwing his arms around Cole without hesitation. You came back. I promised I would, didn't I? Are you staying? For how long? Can we show you the new house? Cole laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. One question at a time, buddy. Elena hung back, watching from the porch. There was something in Cole's eyes that worried her, something he wasn't saying yet. Kids, why don't you take Shadow inside? Show him that the house is safe now. Okay, Mom. Come on, Shadow. The children disappeared into the cabin with the dog. Cole walked up the porch steps slowly, his gait still affected by his injuries. You look good, Elena said. Healthier. Feeling better. The doctors cleared me for light duty last week. That's great news. Yeah, he paused. Can we sit? There's something I need to tell you. They sat on the porch swing David had built their first summer here. Elena remembered countless evenings watching the sunset from this spot, her husband's arm around her, the children playing in the yard. What is it, Marcus? You're making me nervous. Cole took a deep breath. The investigation uncovered something else, something we didn't expect. More corruption. No, this is different. He pulled a folder from his jacket. It's about David. Elena's stomach dropped. I thought we knew everything. The orders, the conspiracy, the cover-up. We do. But there was something in the classified files we didn't find until last week. Something that changes things. Changes what things? Cole handed her the folder. Read it. Elena opened it. The first page was a personnel file. David's photo stared back at her, the formal military portrait she'd seen 1,000 times. But the information below the photo was new. Operation Lighthouse, she read aloud. Deep cover intelligence gathering. Primary objective, infiltrate contractor supply chain. Secondary objective, document evidence of weapons trafficking. David wasn't just a combat medic, Cole said quietly. He was working undercover. Military intelligence recruited him 18 months before his death. Everything he did, the transfers, the volunteering for dangerous missions, it was all part of a larger operation to expose the conspiracy from inside. Elena couldn't breathe. He never told me. He couldn't. The operation required absolute secrecy. Even his commanding officers didn't know the full picture. But I was his wife. I had a right to. Elena. Cole's voice was gentle. He was protecting you. The files show he requested multiple times to be pulled from the operation. He wanted to tell you. But every time he got close to extracting, they moved him deeper. He was too valuable to lose. Tears were streaming down Elena's face. All those months, all those nights he seemed distant, seemed worried. I thought he was just stressed about deployment. I thought he loved you more than anything. The files make that clear. His handlers noted that his commitment to the mission was constantly competing with his desire to come home to his family. Then why didn't he just quit, walk away? Because he was close, so close to getting everything they needed. If he'd pulled out, early years of work would have been wasted, and the people responsible would have just found someone else to eliminate, someone who maybe had a family too. Elena closed the folder. Her hands were shaking. He died for this. Not just because he stumbled onto something by accident. He chose this mission. He chose to put himself in danger. He chose to protect his country and his family. If the conspiracy had continued, those weapons would have been used against American soldiers. Maybe soldiers in your own unit. Maybe soldiers protecting people you loved. I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I don't either. Cole was quiet for a moment. There's one more thing. Something I found in his personal effects. He pulled a small envelope from his pocket. Yellowed. Creased. David's handwriting on the front. For Elena. If I don't come home. Elena's heart stopped. Where did you get this? It was in a classified evidence locker. Part of the files they sealed after his death. When the investigation reopened, everything this came with it. She took the envelope with trembling fingers. Her name in David's handwriting. A letter she was never supposed to see unless the worst happened. I'll give you privacy, Cole said, starting to rise. No. Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Stay, please. Cole sat back down. Elena opened the envelope. My Elena. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. Sorry for all the lies. Sorry for the secrets. Sorry for the nights I couldn't explain why I seemed so far away, even when I was right beside you. I wanted to tell you everything. Every single day I wanted to sit you down and explain what I was doing and why. But the people I'm investigating are dangerous. Not just to me, to you, to Tommy, to Sarah. The only way I knew to protect you was to keep you completely in the dark. That doesn't make it right. Nothing makes it right. But I need you to understand that everything I did, every risk I took was because I love you. Because I love our children. Because I couldn't live in a world where I knew evil existed and did nothing to stop it. You taught me that. Remember that night on the beach in San Diego before I deployed for the first time? You said real courage wasn't about not being scared. It was about being scared and doing the right thing anyway. I've carried those words with me into every firefight, every dangerous situation, every moment when I wanted to quit and come home. I know you'll be angry when you learn the truth. You have every right to be. I just hope eventually you can forgive me. I hope you can remember me as a man who loved his family enough to fight for a world where they'd be safe. Tell Tommy and Sarah that their daddy loved them more than words can say. Tell them I'm watching over them. Tell them to be brave, to be kind, to take care of each other, and to take care of you. And Elena, my beautiful, stubborn, extraordinary. Elena, don't let grief destroy you. Find happiness again. Fall in love again if that's what makes you whole. I would never want you to spend your life mourning me. I want you to spend your life living, fully, fearlessly the way you taught me to live. I love you. I always have. I always will. Yours forever. David. Elena couldn't see. The tears had blurred everything into meaningless shapes. She felt Cole's hand on her shoulder steady and warm. Heard Tommy's voice from inside asking Sarah something about where they'd put Shadow's toys. Felt the evening breeze carrying the scent of pine trees and melting snow. David had known. He'd known he might not survive. And he'd written this letter so that someday, somehow, she would understand. He knew the risks, she managed, and he went anyway. That's what heroes do. I'm so angry at him, for lying, for putting himself in danger, for leaving us. I know. And I love him so much it still hurts to breathe. I know that too. Elena folded the letter carefully, pressed it against her heart. Thank you for bringing me this. There's more, if you want it. More. Cole pulled out his phone, showed her a video file. His handler kept recordings of their conversations. Standard protocol. Most of it is operational codes, reports, tactical information. But some of it, he paused. Some of it is personal. Moments when David let his guard down and talked about his family. I don't know if I can handle hearing his voice right now. You don't have to. Not today. But the files are yours. Whenever you're ready. Elena nodded. Took the phone. Held it like it contained something precious because it did. Marcus, why did you really come here? You could have mailed all this. Called. Sent someone official. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Because I owe you my life. Because your husband died for something I believe in. Because he hesitated. Because I've spent the last 6 weeks in Washington surrounded by politicians and lawyers and intelligence officers, and all I could think about was this cabin, this family, the only people who felt like home to me since I lost my team. Elena looked at him, really looked for the first time since he'd arrived. You're not okay, are you? No, I'm not. His voice cracked. I keep thinking about Rivera, Jackson, Chen, all the guys I lost. I keep thinking about how they should be here, how I'm the one who survived and I don't understand why. Survivor's guilt. Yeah, the doctors have a name for it. Doesn't make it feel any less like drowning. Elena remembered that feeling. The months after David's death when breathing felt like too much effort. When she'd wake up each morning and wonder why she was still here when he was gone. It gets easier, she said quietly. I won't lie and say it goes away. But it gets easier to carry. How long did it take you? 3 years. And I'm not sure I was really carrying it. I think I was just frozen, hiding from life instead of living it. What changed? Elena almost laughed. You crashed into our lives and forced me to wake up, to fight, to remember who I used to be. I nearly got you killed. You nearly got me living again. There's a difference. They sat in silence as the sun dropped toward the mountains. The construction crew had finished and left. The cabin was quiet except for the sounds of children playing inside and Shadow's occasional bark. What will you do now? Elena asked. I'm not sure. The Navy offered me a medical discharge with full benefits. Senator Marsh wants me to consult on the ongoing investigations. And there's been some interest from training programs teaching the next generation what I know. That sounds like a good path. Maybe, but every time I think about going back to Washington or taking some desk job at the Pentagon or even returning to Coronado, he shook his head. It feels wrong. like I'd be putting on someone else's life. Then don't do it. Mo. What's the alternative? Hide in the mountains forever? Would that be so bad? Cole looked at her sharply. Something electric passed between them. Elena? I'm not suggesting anything. She held up her hands. I'm just saying that sometimes the life we planned isn't the life we're meant to live. Sometimes we have to burn everything down and start over. Is that what you did? It's what I'm doing, right now, every day. Tommy burst through the door. Mom, you have to come see. Shadow found a rabbit hole and he won't stop digging. The moment shattered. Elena stood brushing off her jeans. I'm coming, baby. Marcus, you should come too. It's really funny. Cole smiled, a real smile this time. Lead the way, buddy. They spent the evening together. Dinner on the newly repaired porch, stories about Shadow's adventures in Washington, Tommy's breathless questions about military helicopters and tactical equipment, Sarah's shy but growing comfort around the man who'd brought so much chaos and purpose into their lives. When the children finally went to bed exhausted from excitement, Elena found Cole standing in the yard looking up at the stars. David used to do that, she said, joining him. Every night he was home. He said it helped him remember what peace felt like. Smart man. He was. Smarter than me in a lot of ways. I doubt that. Elena crossed her arms against the chill. What are you really thinking, Marcus? He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. I'm thinking that I came here to deliver some files and say goodbye. Closure, tie up the loose ends, move on to whatever comes next. And now I'm standing here watching stars with a woman who makes me feel more alive than I've felt in years, and I don't want to leave. Elena's heart pounded. She should stop this conversation. Redirect it. Protect herself from complications she wasn't ready for, but she didn't. Then don't. Cole turned to face her. Elena, your husband just died 3 years ago. You just found out the truth about his mission. Your whole life has been chaos for the past 2 months. The last thing you need is, don't tell me what I need. Her voice was sharp. I'm so tired of people deciding what I can handle. I handled an army of killers. I handled a congressional investigation. I handled learning that my husband's death was murder. I think I can decide for myself what I'm ready for. Fair enough. Cole held up his hands. Then what are you ready for? I don't know. She laughed, surprising herself. That's the honest answer. I don't know what I want or what I'm ready for, but I know that when you're here, when you're around my children, when we're sitting on that porch together, I feel something I haven't felt in 3 years. What's that? Hope. For the future. For the possibility that life isn't just about surviving from one day to the next. That maybe there's still, she searched for the word, joy, waiting somewhere ahead. Cole stepped closer. I don't want to complicate your life. My life is already complicated. It's been complicated since I met you. That's not exactly a glowing endorsement. No, it's something better. It's honest. They stood there inches apart, the stars wheeling above them. I can't promise anything, Cole said quietly. I'm broken, Elena. In ways that might never heal. The things I've seen, the things I've done. I know. I'm broken too. We can be broken together. That's a terrible foundation for a relationship. No, it's not. It's the only foundation that matters. Two people who understand what loss feels like, choosing to try anyway. Cole reached out, touched her face. His hand was warm, gentle. Nothing like the killer she'd seen on the mountain. I'm not David. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to be Marcus, the man who saved my children, the man who fought beside me when everything seemed hopeless, the man who brought me my husband's last words. And if it doesn't work, if we try and fail, then at least we tried. At least we were brave enough to reach for something good in a world that's taken so much from both of us. Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, slow, uncertain, but real. Your husband was right about you. About what? that you were stubborn and extraordinary. Are you going to keep comparing me to my dead husband, or are you going to kiss me? Cole laughed. And then he did. Inside the cabin, Shadow lifted his head from his spot at Tommy's door. His ears pricked. Then he settled back down with a contented sigh. Good things were happening. The dog could always tell. The next morning, Elena found Tommy already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a serious expression. "Hey, baby. You're up early." "I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about stuff." "What kind of stuff?" "About Marcus." Tommy looked at her with David's eyes. "He's not leaving, is he?" Elena sat down across from him. "I don't know yet. We're figuring things out." "Do you like him?" "I do. Very much." "Like you liked Daddy?" The question hit harder than Elena expected. "Nobody could ever replace your father, Tommy. That's not what this is." "I know. That's not what I'm asking." Tommy's voice was patient, older than his years. "I'm asking if you like Marcus the way you used to like Daddy, the way that makes you smile when you don't realize you're smiling." Elena blinked. "How did you get so perceptive?" "I watched. When Daddy was alive, you used to smile like that all the time. Then he died and you stopped. But yesterday, when Marcus was telling stories at dinner, you smiled like that again. Just for a second." Tears pricked at Elena's eyes. "You're amazing, you know that." "I'm okay with it," Tommy said. "With Marcus staying, if that's what you're worried about." "You are." "Daddy said I was supposed to take care of you. Make sure you weren't sad forever." He shrugged. "Marcus makes you not sad. And Shadow likes him. And he knows how to fix the broken step that always squeaks." Elena laughed through her tears. "Those are your criteria." "They're important criteria." "Yes, I suppose they are." Tommy got up, came around the table, and hugged her. "I miss Daddy. I'll always miss him. But I think he'd want us to be happy. All of us." "When did you become so wise?" "I had good teachers." Sarah appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Why is everyone hugging? Can I hug too?" "Get over here, sleepyhead." The three of them stood in the kitchen arms, wrapped around each other, morning light streaming through the new windows. And in that moment, Elena understood what David had meant in his letter. What he'd been trying to tell her all along. Don't let grief destroy you. Find happiness again. She was trying. Finally, after 3 years of frozen darkness, she was trying. The sound of footsteps on the porch made them all look up. Cole appeared in the doorway. Shadow at his side, holding bags of groceries. "I made a breakfast run. Figured we could all use pancakes." "I love pancakes," Sarah squealed. "I know you do, kiddo. Extra chocolate chips for you." Tommy grinned. "See, Mom? He knows about the chocolate chips. Definitely a keeper." Cole caught Elena's eye. The question in his gaze was clear. She answered with a smile. The first real smile she'd given freely in 3 years. And somewhere she was certain David was smiling too. 1 year later. Elena stood at the podium, looking out at 500 faces she didn't recognize. The auditorium was packed military personnel, government officials, journalists, families of fallen soldiers, all of them waiting to hear her speak. Her hands weren't shaking. That surprised her. A year ago, she couldn't have imagined standing here. A year ago, she'd been a widow hiding from life in a mountain cabin frozen by grief, convinced that her best years were behind her. Everything had changed. When I was asked to deliver the keynote address at this year's Military Family Support Conference, she began, my first instinct was to say no. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not a politician or a general or anyone particularly important. I'm just a combat medic who became a mother, who became a widow, who somehow became something else entirely. A murmur rippled through the crowd. But then I thought about why they asked me. They asked because of what happened on a mountain in Virginia. Because my children and I survived an attack that should have killed us. Because we helped expose one of the largest corruption scandals in military history. Elena paused. Let the words settle. None of that makes me special. What makes me special? What makes all of us special is that we didn't give up. When the storm came, when the bullets flew, when everything seemed hopeless, we found something inside ourselves that refused to quit. She looked at the front row. Tommy sat there 9 years old now, wearing a suit that made him look impossibly grown up. Sarah was beside him, fidgeting with her dress. And next to them, Marcus Cole, his hand resting on Tommy's shoulder. Her family. Her strange, beautiful, rebuilt family. My husband, David Matthews, gave his life fighting the same corruption that nearly killed us. For 3 years I was angry at him. Angry that he'd left us. Angry that he'd chosen duty over safety. Angry that he'd been brave when I wanted him to be careful. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. Then I learned the truth. David didn't stumble into danger by accident. He chose it, knowingly, deliberately understanding the risks. He chose to fight because he believed some things were worth dying for. And when I had to make the same choice, when killers came to my door and my children were in danger, I finally understood. Elena looked directly at Tommy. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. For David, it was protecting his country. For me, it was protecting my children. But the principle is the same. When the moment comes, when you have to choose between safety and what's right, the people we love are watching. They're learning from our choices. She straightened the papers she wasn't reading from. My son saved our lives. Not me, not the soldier we were protecting. An 8-year-old boy who remembered there was a radio in the basement and refused to stop calling for help until someone answered. He learned that from his father. He learned that from watching his mother refuse to give up. He learned that courage is contagious. The audience was silent, captivated. So here's what I want to say to every military family in this room, to every spouse who waits at home, to every child who doesn't understand why mommy or daddy has to leave again, to every parent who's ever stared at a folded flag and wondered if any of it was worth it. Elena's voice rose strong and clear. It's worth it. The sacrifice, the fear, the endless uncertainty. It's worth it because the world is full of people who will do terrible things if good people don't stand in their way. Our loved ones chose to stand. Some of them didn't come home. But their choice, their courage, made it possible for others to live in peace. And for those of us left behind, our job isn't to forget. It isn't to move on like they never existed. Our job is to carry them with us, to live the lives they would have wanted us to live, to raise children who understand what their sacrifice meant, to find joy again, not in spite of our grief, but because our grief reminds us that love is real and precious and worth fighting for. She looked at Cole, at her children, at the photograph of David that sat in a frame in her pocket close to her heart. David Matthews was a hero, but he wasn't the only one. This room is full of heroes. Every person who's ever loved a soldier is a hero. Every child who's grown up with an empty seat at the dinner table is a hero. Every widow, every widower, every parent who's outlived their child, you are heroes. You carry a burden that most people can't imagine, and you do it with grace and strength and an endurance that humbles me. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for being the living proof that love survives everything, even death. Elena stepped back from the podium. The silence held for 1 heartbeat. 2. Then the applause began. It started slow, then built into a wave that crashed over her. People were standing, crying, reaching for each other. Elena walked down the steps on legs that felt suddenly weak. Tommy met her halfway, throwing his arms around her. "Mom, you were amazing. I was terrified." "You didn't look terrified. You looked like a superhero." Sarah pushed between them. "I want a hug too." Elena gathered both children close. Over their heads she met Cole's eyes. He was smiling, but there were tears on his cheeks. "Your husband would be proud," he said quietly. "I know. I felt him there, standing with me." They walked out together, surrounded by well-wishers and photographers, into a future that felt brighter than any of them had dared to imagine. The reception afterward was overwhelming. Hundreds of people wanting to shake her hand, share their own stories, thank her for words that had touched them. Senator Marsh found her near the buffet table, looking slightly shell-shocked. "You did good up there." I felt like I was going to pass out. "Didn't show." Marsh handed her a glass of water. "I have news. The final sentencing came through this morning." Elena's attention sharpened. "And 17 convictions. Life sentences for the 3 ringleaders. 20 to 30 years for the others. The CEO of Meridian Defense Systems will die in prison." "Good. There's more. The compensation fund for families of the conspiracy's victims has been finalized. Your children will receive full survivor benefits plus an additional settlement from the company's seized assets." "I don't care about the money. I know you don't. But your kids' college education is now fully funded with plenty left over. David's sacrifice is being honored in every possible way." Elena looked across the room to where Tommy and Sarah were playing with Shadow in a corner. Cole was watching them, that same soft smile on his face. "What about Cole?" she asked. "What's his status?" "Medical retirement with full honors. He's been offered a consulting position at the Pentagon, but I understand he's declined. He wants to stay in Virginia." Marsh raised an eyebrow. "With you? With us. All of us." "I see." The senator's expression was knowing. "And how do you feel about that?" "Terrified, grateful, hopeful." Elena shrugged. "All of the above." "That sounds about right." Marsh squeezed her arm. "You deserve happiness, Elena. After everything you've been through, you deserve something good." "I'm starting to believe that. Finally." The drive back to Virginia took 7 hours. The children fell asleep within the first hour, curled together in the back seat with Shadow between them. Cole drove while Elena watched the landscape slide past. "You're quiet," he said. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how strange life is. A year ago I was dreading the anniversary of David's death, dreading another day of grief and memories. And then you literally fell into our lives, and everything changed." "Not everything. You're still the same person." "No, I'm not." Elena shook her head. "I'm stronger, more sure of myself, more willing to reach for things I want instead of just surviving. That was always in you. I just gave you a reason to find it. You gave me more than that." She reached over, took his hand. "You gave me a future, one I actually want to live." Cole was quiet for a moment. Then, "I talked to Tommy yesterday, man to man." Elena's heart skipped. "About what?" "About my intentions, about what it means that I'm staying, about whether he's okay with me being part of this family." "What did he say?" "He said his dad would want his mom to be happy. He said Shadow likes me, so I must be okay. And he said, if I ever hurt you, he'd personally throw me off the mountain." Elena laughed despite herself. "That sounds like Tommy. He's an incredible kid. They both are. You've done an amazing job with them. I had help. David built the foundation, and now you're helping me add to it." "Is that what I'm doing? Adding to the foundation? What would you call it?" Cole was silent for a long moment. The highway stretched ahead, straight and empty. "Elena, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about it for weeks, trying to find the right time, the right words." Her stomach tightened. "That sounds serious." "It is." He took a breath. "I love you." The words hung in the air. "I know it's complicated," he continued quickly. "I know you love David, and part of you always will. I'm not trying to replace him. I could never replace him. But what I feel for you, for the kids, for this life we're building, it's real. It's the most real thing I've felt since I lost my team." Elena's eyes were burning. "Marcus, you don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. Whatever happens, whatever you decide, I needed you to know that you're not just a convenience or a rebound or somewhere safe to land. You're everything. You and Tommy and Sarah, you're everything I never knew I was looking for." Elena reached over and put her hand on his cheek. "Pull over." "What?" "Pull the car over, now." He pulled onto the shoulder. The engine idled. In the back seat, the children slept on oblivious. Elena unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to face him. I love you too. Cole's eyes widened. You do? I've been afraid to say it. Afraid of what it meant for David's memory, for the kids, for myself. But watching you with my children, seeing how patient and kind and good you are with them, feeling safe for the first time in years. She shook her head. I love you, Marcus. Not instead of David. Not as a replacement. I love you as you. The man you are. The man who saved us. The man who stayed. He kissed her then. Deep and desperate and full of everything neither of them had been able to say until now. When they finally pulled apart, Elena was laughing through tears. We should probably keep driving. Probably. But he didn't move. Elena, yeah. I want to spend the rest of my life with you, all of you, if you'll have me. Is that a proposal? It's a promise. The proposal comes later when I have a ring and can do it properly. I'll hold you to that. I'm counting on it. They drove on into the night. The children slept. Shadow snored softly. And somewhere above them, Elena was certain David was watching. Not with jealousy, not with sadness, with peace. 6 months later. The cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains had never looked better. The repairs from the attack were complete, and Elena had added her own touches. A vegetable garden, a treehouse Tommy and Cole had built together, a memorial stone for David in the spot where the fighting had been fiercest. Today, the yard was full of people. Senator Marsh had come along with a dozen officials from Washington. Cole's former commanding officers were there, along with several SEAL instructors who'd flown in from Coronado. Tommy's teacher, Sarah's Girl Scout troop leader, neighbors from the nearby town who'd become friends. Everyone who mattered was here. Elena stood at the makeshift altar Cole had constructed, wearing a simple white dress she'd found at a vintage shop 3 counties over. Her hair was down the way David had always liked it. Her hands were steady. Cole stood across from her, looking uncomfortable in civilian clothes that seemed too formal for a man who'd spent his life in combat gear. Tommy and Sarah stood between them, Sarah holding a basket of flower petals, Tommy holding a small velvet box that contained the rings. The officiant was a Navy chaplain who'd served with both David and Cole. His voice carried across the quiet crowd. We're gathered here today to witness the union of Elena Matthews and Marcus Cole. But before we begin, I've been asked to acknowledge another presence, the spirit of David Matthews, beloved husband and father, whose sacrifice brought these two people together. Elena's throat tightened. David's bravery saved many lives, including the life of the man standing before us today. Without David's courage, Marcus Cole would not have survived to carry on the mission that brought him to this mountain. And without that mission, Elena would never have discovered the truth about her husband's death, or the strength inside herself that she'd forgotten she possessed. The chaplain smiled. So, in a very real sense, David Matthews is here with us today, not as a ghost or a memory, but as the foundation upon which this new family is being built. Tommy stepped forward, his voice clear and strong. I want to say something. Elena's eyes widened. This wasn't planned. Go ahead, son, the chaplain said gently. Tommy looked at the crowd, then at his mother, then at Cole. When my dad died, I thought our family was broken forever. I thought my mom would be sad forever and Sarah would never stop having nightmares. And I'd have to be the man of the house, even though I was just a little kid. His voice wavered, but he pushed through. Then Marcus came. He was hurt and scared, and bad people were trying to kill him. And my mom saved him. She was so brave, braver than anyone I've ever seen. And when the bad people came for us, we all fought together. Even me, even Sarah. Tears were streaming down faces throughout the crowd. Marcus doesn't try to be my dad. He knows my dad was special and nobody can replace him. But Marcus is special too. He loves my mom. He loves me and Sarah. He even loves Shadow. And Shadow loves everyone, so that's not that impressive, but still. Gentle laughter rippled through the audience. My dad said I had to take care of our family. He said I was the man of the house. But I think what he really meant was that I had to make sure Mom was happy, that I had to help her find joy again. And Marcus makes her happy. He makes all of us happy. Tommy looked at Cole directly. So I want you to know that I'm glad you're marrying my mom. I'm glad you're going to be part of our family. And I promise to be a good son to you the way I try to be a good son to my dad's memory. Cole's composure cracked. He knelt down, pulled Tommy into a fierce hug. You already are, he whispered. You already are. Sarah, not wanting to be left out, joined the hug. Then Elena, then Shadow, barking and wagging his tail, pushing into the middle of the pile. The crowd laughed and cried and applauded. When everyone finally separated, the chaplain wiped his own eyes. Well, I think Tommy said everything better than I could, so let's get to the vows, shall we? The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of tears and laughter. They exchanged rings, simple bands that Cole had helped Tommy pick out. They spoke promises to each other that felt like prayers. And when the chaplain finally said, "You may kiss the bride," Cole took Elena's face in his hands and kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world, because to him, she was. The reception lasted until well after midnight. Dancing on the lawn, toasts that ranged from tearful to hilarious, stories about David that made Elena laugh and cry in equal measure. At one point, Senator Marsh pulled her aside. "I have something for you. A wedding gift of sorts." She handed Elena an envelope. Inside was a letter on official government letterhead. "What is this?" "A job offer. The Department of Defense is creating a new program training military families in crisis response. Self-defense, emergency medical care, survival skills. They want someone with real experience to design the curriculum. And they're offering it to me. You survived a siege with 2 children and a wounded SEAL. You killed 7 trained operatives while protecting your family. You're exactly what they need." Marsh smiled. "It's part-time, based here in Virginia. Cole's already been approached to co-teach the tactical portions." Elena stared at the letter. A new purpose. A way to use everything she'd learned, everything she'd suffered, to help others. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it. The program doesn't start for 6 months. You have time to decide." "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." Marsh glanced across the yard to where Cole was teaching Tommy and Sarah a complicated handshake. "You've built something beautiful here, Elena. Something worth protecting. I hope you know how rare that is." "I'm starting to." Late that night, after the guests had gone and the children were finally asleep, Elena and Cole stood on the porch watching the stars. "Someday," Cole said. "Someday." Tommy's speech. "I know." Elena leaned against him. "I didn't know he was going to do that. He's an incredible kid. He's his father's son." She paused. "And now he's your son too, if you want him to be." "I want that more than anything." They stood in comfortable silence. Shadow lay at their feet, finally calm after a day of excitement. "Marsh offered me a job," Elena said. "I know. She offered me one too. Told you about the training program. She mentioned you'd be involved." "Only if you are. I told her I'm a package deal now." Elena smiled. "Is that what we are, a package? We're a family. That's the best kind of package." She turned to face him. This man who'd stumbled into her life, broken and bleeding, and had somehow helped her become whole again. "I love you, Marcus Cole." "I love you too, Elena Cole." She laughed. "That's going to take some getting used to. We have the rest of our lives to practice." Inside the cabin, Tommy's voice called out, "Mom, Marcus Shadow needs to go outside." "Coming, buddy." They walked inside together, their dog at their heels, their children waiting their future, stretching ahead like a road without end. Elena thought about everything that had brought her here. David's death, 3 years of frozen grief, a storm that had dropped a wounded stranger into her life, a siege that had forced her to remember who she really was. Every loss, every battle, every moment of despair. It had all led to this, A family that shouldn't exist. A love that had grown from tragedy. Children who had learned that courage was contagious and that helping others was always worth the risk. Mom. Tommy appeared in the doorway. What are you smiling about? Nothing, baby. Everything. All of it. That doesn't make sense. I know. She ruffled his hair. Some things don't have to make sense. They just have to be true. Tommy considered this. Like love. Exactly like love. He nodded satisfied with the answer and ran off to help Cole with Shadow. Elena watched them go, her son, her husband, her dog, her daughter, peering down from the top of the stairs. Her family. And she understood finally what David had been trying to tell her in that letter. What he'd wanted for her all along. Don't let grief destroy you. Find happiness again. She'd found it. Not in spite of the pain, but through it. Not by forgetting David, but by honoring everything he'd taught her about courage and sacrifice and love. The storm had come. She had survived. And on the other side, waiting like a promise kept, was a life worth living. Elena Matthews Cole walked into her home surrounded by everyone she loved and closed the door on the past. The future was waiting. And for the first time in years, she was ready to meet it. Because that's what survivors do. They endure. They adapt. They find reasons to keep going when every instinct says to give up. They build families from broken pieces. They turn tragedy into purpose. They love again even when love seems impossible. And they never ever stop fighting for the people who matter most. Elena had learned that lesson on a frozen mountain with bullets flying and her children hiding and a stranger's blood on her hands. She would never forget it, and neither would anyone who heard her story. Because courage is contagious, and love, real love, the kind that survives death and distance, and every darkness the world can throw at it, love is the most contagious thing of all.